Hi, now let's get started on the bow. So we've talked about the violin already. Let's go through the parts of the bow. It's important that you understand how fragile it is. So if you have a wood bow, usually violin bows are made out of a wood called either Brazil wood or Pernambuco wood, and it's very rare and it's very strong. So it's meant to be able to withstand the pressure. And this tip is called the torque tip, and it allows for an enormous amount of weight. The bow is actually held in with a wedge. It's not glued in. So we don't ever let the tip of our bow hit the floor or another person, and we're careful when we place it somewhere that the tip doesn't get whacked on something. It's very traumatic when you have a bow break. It's actually quite easy to break. I know because I've done that before. It was really, it was bad. So we have, we call this our tip. We call this our frog. We have a screw that tightens and loosens the hair. And I want the hair to be about the thickness of a pencil. So it's important that the bow dips down, not pulled up. So if you pull if I tighten the screw to the right too tight, then it loses that ability to spring. So it should just lightly touch above and below a normal pencil. So about like that. Could be maybe a tiny bit more depending, but the bow will respond better if it's not, for sure you don't want this to be flat. I want it to go from tip to frog with a little bit of a bend in it. Because it's the right hand, it's your bow hand that creates all the sound on the instrument, minus pizzicato. So if you're gonna pluck with your left hand, you're gonna get a sound out of it, out of the violin, but all of the sounds are going to come from a stringed instrument, from your bow. Now the horsehair itself, it's used, the horsehair is very rough and it has little tiny hooks. So if you saw on a flat level, you'd see little tiny hooks like this, and those hooks are what actually pull back and draw on the string. So we use rosin, let me grab my violin. We use rosin so that it helps to make those little hooks a little bit sticky. Now, if I touch the hair, the rosin is, I fill the hair with oil and it won't make a sound. And if it does make a sound, it also is very slippery. It's it's very frustrating. So it's important that you never touch the hair of the instrument, with the exception of when you're holding your bow for the violin and violas. With a bent thumb, your thumb is going to lightly touch that hair, and that's just what happens. And you can see on mine, there's a little bit of a spot down at the very bottom. So this is where, when you're holding your bow, it will touch tiny bit, but I never touch it along through here. And I don't touch it to check how thick it is, because then it's just putting oil on. So I'm gonna get a nice even pull of sound if my hair is not full of my human oil. So we keep it clean. Now, I have not told you all of the parts of the instrument of the bow that will be in Unit 1 on page 2. So please send me back a flip grid and tell me what I missed. And I'd also like to hear, after you've read through how to care for your instrument, recognizing how fragile the top is, and the wood is very thin, and these little, let me show you the purfling. On the violin, these are not painted on. Can you see there's two dark stripes and one in between? This is actually wood, and this little purfling keeps the seams, the grain, from splitting open. Can you see how it's right at the edge? So without that purfling, they would just go wide and the edges of the instrument would be lost. So this is very fragile. Stringed instruments are very fragile. They're also, with a little bit of care, they last a long time. So my violin's getting close to 300 years old now, which is a lot of violinists have been playing it. And it shows it's had a few accidents. There's some little places where people have had to patch in. It's been glued and held together for hundreds of years. So I'm the lucky violinist that gets to play with it now. So be really careful with your instrument, and there'll be many other people who'll be able to play it. Who knows, maybe 100 years from now, you'll have grandchildren, or there'll be some other students that say, I wonder who played this violin, and it's you.